name's Sharon and my channel is Budget Crafty Mama. Today we're going to be continuing with the baby shower gift set, and we're going to be making one of the baby blankets, and this is one I've already made. They've got mitered corners on them, so they're really cute, but they are so easy to make. And there's a simple trick to making them. Now you can make them any size you want to make them. You can make them for the little swinging cribs, you can make them for a cot, you could make them square as a play blanket, you know, to put on the floor for the babies to play on, or you could even make it single bed size. There's one very simple rule that you do: whatever size you cut the front piece out, you need to cut the back piece 10 inches bigger. So just say you're cutting the front 30 inches by 35 inches, you would need to cut the back 40 inches by 45 inches. And likewise, if you were, say, doing a big one to go on a bed, you cut the front 45 inches by 60 inches, you'd need to cut the back 55 inches by 70 inches. Now today I'm going to be making quite a small one because it's easier to get it on the camera and demonstrate it if it's slightly smaller. Plus this will come in handy as a nice little birthday present for my daughter in a couple of weeks, to go for her dolly pram. So I'm literally doing one that is 10 inches by 15 inches. So the back I've cut 20 inches by 25 inches. So this is just going to be like a little tiny one I'm making, just for her dolly pram. And if you were going to make one, say, for a swinging crib, you'd probably want to make it a little bit bigger than that. So you'd probably want to make that maybe about 15 inches by 20 inches the front, and then the back 25 inches by 30 inches. And as long as you stick to that basic rule, you can make this blanket any size you want. You can make it square, you can make it rectangle, whichever you want. All you have to remember is whatever size you cut the front, you need to cut the back 10 inches bigger. So I'm going to reposition the camera and we'll get on with that. Okay. Right, so as you can see, I've cut my fabric out and I've cut the back, as you can see, considerably bigger than the front. I know this probably doesn't sound like it's going to make much sense or that it's going to work, but I can assure you this is the easiest way of making a baby blanket, and it is so quick and simple. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my front piece. Now I've cut this at, I think it's 10 inches by 14 inches, I think I've cut this at. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mark my corners. On all four corners I'm going to mark my 1/4 inch, because that is quite important. So I'm just going to put my ruler on like that, and I'm just going to mark the corner. Now this is one of those heat remove pens, so it's not going to be set. So if you can see, I've got my 1/4 inch mark there, and I'm just going to do the same thing on this corner. And again on this corner. It's quite hard trying to stay in the frame with this. And then the last one. So that's the first thing you need to do. The next thing you need to do is mark the centre point on each of these. Now I find the easiest way to do that is to just fold it in half, and I'm just going to pop a pin just fold it in half, and I'm just going to pop a pin in the fold. And I'm going to do that on all 4 sides. Just fold it in half, line up the ends, and just pop a pin in the middle. Again, just pop a pin in, and then I'm just lining up these 2 ends, and pop a pin in. Yep. Right, with this I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to line up the corners, fold it in half, and just put a pin in the centre of it. And then last side, just fold it there up and pop a pin in. Right, so then I'm just going to open that up, and I'm going to find the longer side, because I've actually done mine as a rectangle. I'm going to put right sides together, and then as you can see where I've put these pins, I'm just going to line those 2 up, and pin them together. And then I'm just going to line it up along straight bit and pin it into place. Okay, so as you can see that's pinned from, I've marked the centres and pinned them, and as you can see there's 5 inches sticking off that end and 5 inches sticking off that end. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the other side, I'm just going to pull it across, and this piece I'm just going to pull it across and do exactly the same thing, pin the far side. So just going to take that, line those pins up in the centre and pin those together flush. And do the same there. There you go. So as you look at it now, it looks a bit weird because it's not fitting properly, it's all bizarre looking. Now I'm just going to go to the sewing machine, and these 2 straight edges that I've pinned, I'm going to sew from where I've marked the blue line on this side, and I'm going to sew straight across to where I've marked the blue line there. I'm going to stop at the edge of that blue line, I'm not going to go over it, and I'm going to just sew both sides, and then I'll come back and show you the next stage. Right, so as you can see I've sewn those 2 sides together, and now we're going to do the end pieces. We're going to sew right the way across the one, but on the other we're going to leave an opening of about 3 inches to turn it around. Obviously the bigger the blanket you're making, you'll need to leave a slightly bigger hole, because if you're doing like want to fit a single bed, you're not going to be able to fit that through a 3-inch gap, so you'd need to adjust the size of the hole you left for turning based on the size of the blanket. But as this is such a diddy one, I'm just going to leave a 3-inch gap because that's plenty to turn this round. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this pin that we'd marked the centre of it up to the pin that on the backing that we marked the centre of it, and we're just going to pin those together. Just pop a pin in there and do the same with this side. Put that straight along and pop a pin in that end. Now you want to make sure when you're sewing up to the end you're literally only sew into that line. You don't want to sew over it because you need to be precise with that for when we turn. So when you sew there, you want to literally stop at that line. You don't want to sew over. You want precise corners. So I'm just going to do the same on this end. Just bring those two up to meet. I'm just going to pop a couple more pins in here. Just to remind me that I need to leave that open. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here and I'm going to stitch there, then back stitch a little bit, and then go back to this side and stitch a little bit across and then back stitch again, so that I'm leaving a good gap there. So I'll go to the sewing machine and then I'll come back and show you the rest of it. So now I've done that, I'm just going to do the mitered corners, and to do that all you do is you take these corners here and you just fold them up together like that. Just straighten it out, put it down, straighten it out. And then as you can see here, this is your stitch line. There, just mark it. That's where my stitch is finished, just there. I'm just going to take this ruler and where one of these lines is here, I'm just going to line that up with the bottom of here and where that stitch line ends, just so I can make sure that it's straight. Just going to line that up and mark it. And then I just like to put a couple of pins in just to hold it in place. And then I'm just going to do the rest of the corners exactly the same way. I'll show you another one, but when you've done that you just go to the machine and you just sew down there. So when you start you do a little back stitch and then you sew down and then you back stitch at the edge. So I'll just show you one more. So again, you just, where you've got it there, you just fold your two ends together at the point. So your point's there and you fold the two ends together. I just give it a little bit of a flick just to straighten it out a bit. Yeah, and then I like to just put a dot. Now this pen's one of the ones that irons out, so it's not like that's going to show through. And then I like to just line that up with the edge and the little blue dot, and I just draw a line, and that's my stitch line, you see, that's where I'm going to stitch down. And then I'm just going to pop a couple of pins in just to hold that in place so that it doesn't move around on me. Stick as many pins in as you feel you need. So that's it. I'm just going to do that with all four sides, and then I'm just going to go to the sewing machine and I'm just going to sew down. I'm just going to back stitch at the beginning, sew to the end of that line, and then back stitch at the end, and then I'll come back and show you the next stage. So as you can see, I've sewn all those, so all the corners are now sewn. And now the next stage is to just cut these off. Now you can either get a very sharp pair of scissors and just cut a 1/4 inch, or I like to just put my ruler on there and just cut the excess off. And you just want to do that on all four corners. I like to just snip these corners just slightly, just take the bulk off the corner, just to help it turn. And then I'm just going to move that out of the way, and I'm just going to bring my little ironing mat in. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lie this flat, and I'm just going to give this a bit of an iron, and I'm just going to iron the seams out on it, just to make them lie sort of flat. And then I'm just going to iron these corner seams. You can see where we've done the corners, it's gone into a nice little mitered corner, and I'm just going to iron these. I'm just going to open these up and iron these flat, just so that these will sit nice and flat. See that? So just going to pop the iron across them just so that they sit nice and flat. And then with these ones I'm just going to iron them up. I'm just going to do that on all four corners. And make sure it's all nice and crisp so the corners are all nice and up. Right, the next stage is to go to the bit that you've left open and just turn it the right way around. Go to the far corner and just pull that first one through. Right, and then I'm just going to use a chopstick. You can use anything. You can buy special tools for doing this, but I think a chopstick works just as well. I'm just going to push the corners out. There you go. You see that's beginning to lie nice and flat. And it's got some really nice mitered corners going up into a point. So I'm just going to give that another iron, just to make sure they're lying flat. Now normally I'd be using steam, but I'm working on my craft table here rather than on my ironing board, so I don't want to use steam because it goes through onto my mats. Just going to give this a quick iron all the way around. Right, as you can see there, it's laying nice and flat. You've got some nice mitered corners. It's a really easy way of doing it, and this works whether or not you're doing a little one like this or whether you're doing one to fit a single bed. It's exactly the same. As long as you do the back 10 inches bigger than the front, this is how it'll work and this is how it'll come out. And it just gives you that nice beautiful mitered corners. So now I'm just going to top stitch all the way around this edge, which will seal this opening here where we turned it. So I'm just going to top stitch all the way around there. Now if you're feeling adventurous and your sewing machine's got some nice stitches on it, you could do a decorative stitch on there. If not, you could just do a straight stitch or a zigzag stitch. It's entirely up to you how you do it. On some of the ones I've done decorative stitches. On this one, I've got, I don't know if you can see it, it's like sort of a wavy stitch I've done on that one. So you can just do whatever stitch you want on there. So I'm just going to go and do the top stitching, and then I'll come back and show you what it looks like finished. Right, so I've top stitched that all the way around. As you can see, I changed the colour of the thread so it stood out a little bit. I've got the same blue as that's in the little fairy's dress to do the top stitching because I thought it would make it a little bit of a feature. And that's it. It's as simple as that. That is one little blanket finish. Now this I've made out of the brushed cotton again, and it's super soft, and you know, in today's environment where everybody's got central heating on, you don't want great big thick blankets, so it's nice to have sort of nice thin layers to put on the baby. So these are kind of cute. So if you've liked this video, please press the like button and share it, and if you subscribe and ring the notification bell, then you'll be notified of any videos that I put out in the future. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you on the next video.